Both partners need to recognize criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. It's called the Four Horsemen, which is criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. The Gottman Institute can predict relationship failure based on whether people do these four or any combination of these in their relationship when they handle conflict. Pretty easy. If you guys are just criticizing each other, being defensive, not taking ownership, that leads to contempt. Contempt is the worst of them all. This is the devaluing, seeing the person as less of a person because of their behavior, what happened, or whatever. And so instead of having gratitude and appreciation and radical acceptance for the mistakes and who they are, recognizing that they're a flawed human being just like everyone else, and you're having contempt. This person disgusts me. This person is less than me. And women and men, but particularly women, will do this a lot when the genuine desire is not there. You see, you guys want all those signs. How do I know she's genuine desire? Well, if she follows contemptuous behavior all the time, that in order to have control over you and to try to get you to qualify and to her and to have power through victimhood, you know what I mean? And to try to make herself superior to you through contemptuous behavior, that's a pretty good sign. Maybe the genuine desire isn't there. Or perhaps maybe she does not have the ability to have the oxytocin bond through her 30, 40, 50 partners she's had. I mean, sorry, that's a real thing. I know people don't like to hear it sometimes, but it's true. And then stonewalling. Stonewalling is where you will not allow the other person to communicate with you. It's not the same as a soft next. A soft next is setting the conditions for healthy communication, and you're delaying so that you guys can be in a place of having healthy communication. So you're delaying the communication for good reason, for reasons of boundaries and conditions. That's not stonewalling. That's healthy. Stonewalling is, I'm going to leave and not text her back. Stonewalling is, I'm going to interrupt her, or she's going to interrupt you and not listen to a word you're saying. That's another way of stonewalling. It's very subtle. People don't recognize, but it's exactly it. Not listening to your partner, and just talking at them, talking over them constantly. That's a stonewalling, right? Being in the conversation, but shutting your brain off. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever. Okay. And not communicating your needs or emotions. All right. And then resenting that person afterwards and punishing behaviors. That's stonewalling. So these are all relationship killers. And so if your partner or you are doing these things, you are destroying your relationship piece by piece every time you do them. Okay, you're throwing off that magic ratio. And so think about an argument, a typical toxic argument, where both of you are being critical of each other, you're being defensive, she's being contemptuous now towards you, and then you stonewall each other for a few days. How many negative interactions just happened in one argument? 5, 10, 20, 50. So, and those negatives built and were really intense. So then you make up, you bang it out, the attachments still are there, so you're back in it. You don't address the problems. And even if you address the problem in a healthy way later, you feel temporarily good, but you just had all of these negative interactions. So now let's look at that magic ratio. How many more positive interactions are you going to have? And to what intensity before this argument is meaningless? The reason why time matters is because you hope to have more positive interactions over a period of time. So imagine if you have arguments like that every week or even just every month. You can negate a whole month almost of positive through a really bad argument. And then all of these patterns. And then the resentment that follows. Because when the resentment follows, then that's more negative interactions. So you see how having a bad conflict can really throw this magic ratio off and really throw you into having more negatives than what a 5-to-1 ratio is required, or better than that. And you can see how this just causes a slow now erosion of your relationship and your perceptions of your partner. And the sad thing is is you'll have people who break up just so because of this. And that chick will walk out of your life because chicks do this. I mean, women tend to do this, a bit with their perceptions. Just in the fact that she is usually in the is the submissive position, all right, or should be, or genetically should be, we'll say, is wired to be. And so what happens is, or it's a continued negative and negative and negative. All right. When finally she walks away because she's devalued her partner. She doesn't see her partner as worthy enough to be with her. She thinks she can do better than him. And she thinks that he's not good enough for her, right? And then he hasn't changed anything about himself other than maybe improved. She was doing all of the toxic patterns, maybe he was doing some too, right? Maybe both were. And then she walks away. Well, what happens is, what if he continues to make himself better? Or what if he stays the same? Doesn't even matter. After that breakup, and then with faded effect bias, so through time, all that devaluing and that negative emotion gets forgotten about. And in separation in time, she ends up going, man, I really miss him. 6 months later, I really miss him. He was good about that. He was good about that. So she has to continue to fuel her contempt for this guy in order to keep this going, or she's just going to realize that she broke up with somebody who was a good partner to her, and they can't even figure out why the breakup happened. And the reason why it happened was because of this conflict management, right? In her brain, he was less of the guy. He was no longer her hypergamous best, just right up in here, by allowing this devaluing to occur through toxic patterns in conflict. And then smoke clears, and now she wants him back. Happens all the time, right? And then a lot of times those relationships will never come back. Most of the time they never do. And that's the sad part. Right? You are either growing together and fostering a deeper frame and a deeper relationship, or you're not. And if you're not, you're gradually, even if it's just a little bit each week, slowly growing apart because it's getting more and more dull and more status quo. And eventually it's not going to be worth sticking together for, right? So you have to get rid of these toxic patterns. First and foremost, even if you do everything else wrong, you and your partner have to eradicate these. You have to talk about them. You have to recognize them. You have to recognize Deering as a man, particularly, or as the dominant. All right. But both of you need to recognize it. All right. Both partners should know. Both partners need to recognize criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. That is got to be a early frame thing for you if you're not in a relationship yet with somebody, but you see them as potential. You need to talk about how you guys have handled conflict in your past relationships, what went wrong, and how to handle it in the future. If you don't do this, you're probably going to destroy your relationship, or you're going to allow your partner to do it, or you're going to get in a relationship with someone who just isn't capable of having a healthy relationship to begin with.